Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. My name is Dwyan. Welcome to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to continue my conversation with regards to this question. How can Blacks in America attain political power? How can they get political power in America? How can Black Americans get political power in America? Now, I've done a video on this. Please check it out. Look through my videos list and you'll see it. It's called How Can Black Americans Get Political Power in America? And I think it's very much related to what we're going to be talking about today. In fact, I would like to look at this question through the lens of an American journalist called Charles Blow. Okay? Let me just, now, Charles Blow wrote a book called The Devil You Know, a Black Political Manifesto by Charles M.W. Also, right now, as you can see there, an HBO original, I think it's on other streaming platforms as well. But, and I would say this documentary is based on this book. This book came out a few years ago, and the documentary is being shown this year, 2024. South to Black Power, as you can see there. By the way, I strongly recommend this book. This is a very, very good book. It gives you a real good understanding of what is at stake and what the possibilities are. Okay. So I definitely recommend that. So as you can see, that's, so definitely, guys, check it out on one of your streaming platforms. Look out for it, South to Black Power. And I think this strategy, in my opinion, is the only, not only the best, but the only way that Blacks in America can get political power. Okay. So we're going to be looking at this through the eyes of Charles Blow. Who is Charles Blow? Well, he is an American journalist, as you can see here on Wikipedia. He's an American journalist. He's a commentator. He's an op-ed columnist for the New York Times and a political analyst for MSNBC. He was born in Louisiana, of course, in the United States of America, for those of you who don't live in America. The typical background that you might expect, but he's a writer. He actually wears a number of different hats. But like I said, the thing that put me onto him was his book, which I just showed you. Let me just pop it up again. I think this book is a very, very good read. Very, very good read. And it definitely inspired me. And please check out my video on how Black Americans can get political power, because it's based exactly on what he said. But I just go into it where I look at the numbers and I really try to get a deep understanding. In fact, I might even talk a little bit about those numbers in this video. So I think the best way then to introduce Charles Blow, and more specifically, of course, this documentary, South to Black Power, is to show the preview. What do they call it? The coming attractions. The preview of South to Black Power, in case none of you have heard of Charles Blow before and you haven't heard of any of this. I think that would be a good introduction. So let's watch it together. It's only about 1:53 seconds for the preview. Let me just line it up.
I'm trying to find a way we can lift the burden off the shoulders of Black people of white supremacy. What if we skip over all that hoping? What if we skip over all of the pleading and the begging and the marching and the shouting and go straight to the power? During the Great Migration, about 6 million Black people left the South for cities in the North and West. I suggest that Black people return to the states with the highest percentages already of Black people, where they can gain political power.
If we're gonna make a go of it, the South makes a lot of sense.
Very important first statement, right? This is a strategy where you don't have to depend on the dominant society, the white power structure, in order to get things. You don't have to appeal to them. Just like he said, the demonstrations and the appealing to them, they're trying to get into, assimilate into their society. No, we get our power.
I was shaken and nervous, maybe even afraid about leaving New York for Atlanta. I've convinced myself that this is what we must do as Black people.
I don't know if you could convince that many people to move that way.
The argument of like, hey, go south is that much different from, hey, up north, let's get this together.
You are encouraging Black Chicago to stay here, stay intact.
This is our city.
Okay, so that's an important point, right? That's an important point. Yeah, sorry guys, I just have to put the headphones on so I can hear what you guys are hearing. That's an important point, okay? I want us to really take that in for a minute because, yes, a lot of Black people will not be willing to move back to the South. And I think that's fine. You know, I think we have to be realistic. But I'm going to show you in a minute that you don't need 100%, you don't need every Black person to do it. You just need, you need a sizable amount, but you just need 30, 40, 50% of people to do it, of Black people to do it. You know, of course we're realistic. Everyone is not going to do it. Just like that lady said, Chicago's her city. She's probably been there for a few generations. So that's her home. And I totally get that and totally understand it. But this does not depend on every single Black person moving back to the South. I just want to make that important point.
I want for Black boys to live in a world where they do not have to think about protecting their humanity.
Those who don't want to see sharing of that power will do all that they can to waylay that situation.
There is the X factor of these voter suppression bills.
Every freedom is at stake.
There's some things in life that are bigger than you. It has to be about community success.
We are the cavalry we've been waiting on.
I have to figure out if I am being an apostle of Black power or am I chasing windmills?
We got to get back and claim really what we built.
Okay. We got to get back and reclaim, what we built. So, yes, people, as you can see, it's very, very simple. Black people move back to the South. Now, like I said, I've done a video where I've broken this down a little bit more, but it was also mentioned in the short piece that you just saw there, But I want to say this real quickly. If I can just find everything. If we check this out, right? So just go here. Sorry guys, I have a system here and sometimes it can get confusing, but let's take a look at this, okay? And I broke this down in another video, but this is kind of like an updated version. So the whole idea is that the reason why Black people need to move to the South is because Black people only account for 14% of the United States population. And as you can see here, okay, I have all the states on the far left. And I'm sorry I couldn't put this in a more presentable way, but you guys got to follow me on this. All the states are listed on the left, as you can see there. Boom, 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 all 50 or whatever, 51, 52. And then I have the population of the state in this column, column B that I've highlighted. And then I have the Black population of that state. And then what is the percentage of Blacks in the state? And as you can see here, we're only 14% of the population. So if we're in all these states, then our numbers are small. Like, as you can see, I don't think the zero means that there are no Black people in these certain states, but it was just such a small number, I guess. And I guess, it's just a small number, so it might as well just be 0%. But as you can see, we're all here, we're spread out, and as a result, it's difficult for us to get political power, particularly at the state level, the state and local level. Because if, we can come together and be the majority of a state, that means that we can vote in, assuming we vote as a block, and we should vote as one block. We can decide who is the governor, who are the senators, and those are critical things that we as Black people need to control in order for us, because what do the senators do? The senators give us a seat at the table right there in the Senate. We're right inside, okay? Of course, same with the other House of Representatives as well, okay? And I would say perhaps even more importantly, we can get control of not just the governorship, but the state legislature, the law-making ability. That is a critical element, as far as I'm concerned, for Black people. So the idea is move back to the South. So what I did here is I just said, okay, what are the states? And it was mentioned in the video. Charles Blow talks about it, and he's absolutely right. You go to this, we should move to the states where we're already, this is the column D, where we're already a high percentage. And as you can see in my thing, these were the states, the top 7 states, right? Which I say that we should move to. Why 7? Because Black people are 14% of the population, right? So out of 50 states, it means that if we go by population, we should have 7 states. In other words, we should have 7 governors and we should have 14 senators and a large contingency in the House of Representatives. Okay? That is how we get power. And we can, because we're only 14%, if we spread out, it'll be difficult for us to get political power. So we got to consolidate, and we can become the majority in 7 states because it's directly proportional to our population. So we've got to move from certain states and go into other states. Which states? We should go into the ones where we are a large majority already, as Charles Blow also says, right? That makes absolutely sense. We should move into those states. And those states are the District of Columbia, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Maryland, South Carolina. Now, I know in his documentary, he focuses on North Carolina, and I have it in green there. As you can see in the column A, I have it in green there, Delaware and North Carolina. But they're right there, and they also have high percentage. I think anything above 20% is solid. If we're below 20%, in any state, I think we should definitely move into the southern states to get. This is what we're saying by political power. And with that type of power, another point that Charles Blow makes, with that type of power, okay, you don't have to march on Washington or go and petition this person. So you're doing those things because you don't have power. But once you have power, you have representation, and you have a seat at the table, even though it's still a small seat because Black people are only 14% of the population. But at least based on how the United States is, states have a high degree of power. And if you can control state legislatures, you can control that state. You can control the environment of that state. And I think that's very important for Black people to do. These places where Black people are the largest also happen to be the place where every Black foundational Black American comes from. Okay, the South. Okay, after the Civil War, 95% of Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, were in the southern states, in the so-called Deep South. Okay, so this is the key of what is being said. Now, I want to look at a couple of, and these points are going to be reiterated because I think this has to be reiterated. Okay, and I know people want fast videos, quick videos, don't go too long, you get boring and all that. Nah. This is for people who are willing to go a little bit deeper and dig deeper and really understand the situation. Okay, so we're going to now switch over to watch a couple of videos. Again, guys, bear with me here, in terms of getting all this stuff together. Okay, we're going to be looking at we're going to be looking at this interview by Charles Blow on MSNBC. So remember, he's a political. It says he's a political, so he comes on the show a lot. So he's on NBC. I'm not going to be highlighting the other brother. He's a Tennessee state official in this particular video because I am focusing a little bit more on Charles Blow. So there's a couple of things he says, and I'm going to go through it, and let's hear it, and let's see if we can hit home with some of these points.
That's a big ask. You're asking Black Americans after decades and decades of having moved to the North to say, think about going back to the South, where you can tip the balance in some of these states, have real political power, and make change. How'd you arrive at this thesis? Because you're a guy who thinks about this a lot and has written about it a lot. How'd you get to this one? Because it's big.
Well, first, I want to say this. It's not as big an ask as you think because it's already happening.
Boom. Point number one. Okay. It's already happening. Okay. Blacks have been moving to the South already.
Without me saying a word. I'm just trying to encourage more of it.
I'm just trying to encourage more of it. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. Okay. To encourage more of it. Okay.
The reverse migration is already a thing that Black people are engaged in.
Reverse migration is already a thing that Black people are engaged in. So we're already doing it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue to do it more.
But, I look at it this way. Half of the power in the country, as allocated by the Constitution, is reserved for the states. And
Boom.
A lot of the things that Black people care most about, the things that touch their lives the most, are controlled on the state level.
Yes. It's controlled on the state level. It's controlled on the state level. That is where the key to Black power in America lies, and especially because, as I said, because we're such a minority, only 14% of the population. So you've got to kind of like come together and consolidate, so I give him a lot of credit for this.
And that's everything from mass incarceration, how the criminal code is written, education, healthcare, whatever. And what we see across the country is that even when states or legislatures are liberal on a vast majority of issues, include everything from gay rights to environmental policy, that doesn't always align with racial egalitarianism and the protection of Black people and the equality of Black people, even in those states. And so I want to see a situation where Black people have more access to that state power the way that they did have it during Reconstruction, when 3 states were majority Black and 3 others were very close to being so.
Okay, very important point too, right? This is, again, the emphasizing state power, because that is very feasible. And all you have to do is get above 50%, 60%. We don't have to get 100% of the state. We're not saying, segregation or something like that. But we are saying consolidation, okay, which is very, very different. And I think Black people need to do that in order to have political power. And then once you have that state level power, the things that we are complaining about, I don't want to use the word complaining. I mean, they're legitimate in my opinion. But the things that we have issues with, and we have to petition the government, and we have to get the dominant society, the white power structure, we got to get them to do that. That's fine. But as he says, as Charles Blow says, let's bypass that and just go straight for the political power. We get the legislature, we get the governorship, we can write our own laws and protect our own communities and live the way we want to live. It's sovereignty to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that's a key point. Now let's move on to another point that he made.
Charles, let's talk about places like North Carolina or where you are right now in Georgia or Louisiana, where you're from, where you've got, in many cases, supermajority Republican legislatures like they do in Tennessee. But you have, in some cases, Democratic statewide officials. In other words, more people voted for a Democrat statewide than managed to at a state level just because of the way gerrymandering works. Tell me about that. I mean, at some point, do you get to the point where you can change a place like Tennessee, where some of Representative Jones' people on the other side of him, on the Republican side, don't even run against a candidate? It's so gerrymandered.
Well, the thing that I, keep my eye on is what you said, statewide races. Right now, you have, like in the state of Georgia, 2 senators that were elected by a coalition led by Black people, which is the first time that has happened in American history, by the way. And the
first Black governor. Sorry to interrupt. I know some people don't like to interrupt the video, but also the first Black governor, which is in Maryland, right? I'm not sure whether he's the first Black governor or the first he's definitely the first Black governor from Maryland. So we have 1, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Next step, those people went to Washington, right? So they don't stay in the state to do the state's business. They can do, advocate on behalf of the state in Washington. But there's another pillar or another domino that has to fall, which is governor seats, because what governors allow you to do is to have veto power over what legislatures can do. It is a safeguard, a bulwark against the worst impulses of the legislature. And then on top of that, it's important to remember this as well, which is what is happening here in Georgia. The more Black people who have come to Georgia, so, the Black population in Georgia has doubled from 1990, from 1.7 million to 3.4 million Black people. It becomes harder and harder and harder and harder to draw your majority white or majority Republican districts because there's just too many people. And what you see happening is that the judiciary will at some point step in and say, you just can't do this, which is what they've done in Alabama, what they've done in Louisiana. You just cannot do this. There's too many of these Black people. You have to give them representation in a district that allows them to vote for people who look like them or who that they want to elect.
Bam. I don't think there's anything more to say after that. The governorship is very important. We'll be able to control our environment by putting people into office that we choose rather than what is the situation now, which is other people choose, And again, you got to see my video, How Black Americans Can Get Power. That's a more goes into the numbers type of video, and I explain exactly on the state level and the senators and the governorships how important it is. And I even look at some of the races and I show that Black Americans today, right now, we do not put anybody in office as Black Americans. And given the history of this country of discrimination against Black Americans, and yet here we are today in 2024, and we still, as a group, which only cares about our interests, have not put anybody into power. We've not, I'm talking about, today. I know that during Reconstruction, it was a little bit different, but you have to remember that during Reconstruction, the state legislatures, the senators, I believe, when it was not a vote that was for the people, it was the state legislatures that decided who the senator would be, right? It was a small subset group, whereas now it's a statewide race. So even more reason why Black people should do what this man is saying, man. I'm telling you. Now, I also want to, hit home this point in other ways as well. So Here's an article that came out recently, you know, in the last couple of days. Rite Aid banned from using facial recognition for 5 years after, I see it's, no, I'm sorry. Let's put this on here. So, Rite Aid banned from using facial recognition for 5 years after allegedly falsely accusing customers of crimes and unfairly targeting people of color. Okay. Now, I put this here. Look, this is what the FTC says, right? According to the FEC, also alleged that facial recognition software mainly appeared in communities that were largely Black, Latino, and Asian. Okay. Rite Aid's reckless use of facial surveillance systems left its customers facing humiliation and other harms, and its order violations put consumers' sensitive information at risk, said the FTC's Bureau of Consumer. So, the reason why I'm highlighting this is because I'm showing you that the dominant society is always going to want to continue to be dominant, particularly in their sphere. Okay, and that's why it's important for Black people. It's important for us to have our own institutions. It's important for us to have our own control over our communities. Okay, then we can make decisions, and then we can have the right groups and relationship between groups to make sure that things are fair in the society. But if we rely on the dominant society with a very bad history, by the way, this is the type of thing we're going to get, you know, and this is, you know, this is what we're going to get. We're going to get this type of stuff. Now, another thing also is, as you can see, recently the U.S. Mint releases 5 gold coins, 1 silver coins, and $50 coins commemorating abolitionist Harriet Tubman. Now, my response to this is craziness, and this is about all you can expect from the white power structure, right? The white dominant class, the white ruling class. This is all you can expect for them. Like, they're going to give you, for the first time, abolitionist Harriet Tubman is being honored by the U.S. Mint, CNN reports. On Thursday, December 4th, the Mint, a bureau of the U.S. Department of Treasury, raised a 5 gold coin, a silver dollar coin, and in recognition of her contributions prior to and following the Civil War. This was made through an August 22 presidential signing of the Harriet Tubman Bicentennial Coin Act. I mean, unless I'm missing something, but this is so trivial. And this is the type of crumbs that the white power structure gives to Black people. You know, they'll name a street after Martin Luther King, or some of these people, they'll name a street after them. They'll have a memorial. Yo, more is needed. And that's why we cannot depend and expect the dominant society to atone, right? We can't expect them to do it because they're not going to do it. What they're going to do is that they're going to give us a minted coin, as you can see here. Or, you know, they're going to give us facial recognition software, and they're going to make sure that we're targeted more than the other communities, you know. Then this came up. Oh, this is another thing reported from the. I don't know whether people are aware of this, but you have this debate on DEI, this diversity, inclusion initiatives to curb racism and stuff like that. Elon Musk says this is racist. By having a system that is based on race is racism. Okay. Which is true, you know. I mean, you can't deny that, you know. You can't deny that, man. That is true. However, it must be placed in its context, and this is where I come in to say that yes, that is true. It is racism, but this country has had a system of racism for hundreds of years, generations, and now it wants to say, "Oh no, that's terrible. Now, racism is no good." without actually addressing the race that was discriminated against, persecuted, left basically landless, no money, nothing after slavery officially ended. You understand what I mean? So it's that has to be addressed. Then we can close. Then we can come up with a law that says anything based on race, you can't have racial preferences based on race. That's wrong. That's illegal. Okay. Then we can put that law into place. But first, there has to be the scales have to be balanced. Black people in this country were left with nothing after slavery. In fact, I would argue that slavery continued in another form after the Civil War. And we're going to get into that in this. I'm starting to preach right now, but we're going to get into this. But here's what Elon Musk is saying. Okay, so he's right. It's true. But if you put it in the context of America, and you realize that Black people have not been there has been no restitution, there's been no reparation, there's been no repair. None at all. So you can't close the racial preferences until the balance between the races and the injustice that happened to one race or another race, that has to be solved. That has to be dealt with. You can't sweep it under the rug, which is my criticism for the dominant white society, and in particular the white power structure. They want to sweep it under the rug. We have nothing to do with that. Which is such a crazy statement. So what did our boy here say? Let me go full screen so we can read this. Good businesses look where others don't to find the employees that will put your business in the best possible position to succeed, Cuban said in a series of posts. I take it as a given that there are people of various races, ethnicities, orientation that are regularly excluded from hiring consideration, he said. By extending our hiring search to include them, we can find people that are more qualified. And again, he's right. If you exclude certain people, or if you have excluded certain people from the past and now you include them, you increase your pool of getting more qualified people. And it's more people in the pool, you get more qualified people. So he's also right. But you see, the thing is, Black people, Black Americans, I'm telling you, those of you who resonate with what I'm saying and what Charles Blow is advocating, what I would say to you guys is focus more on us and us getting our stuff together and getting things for us, and not worrying about trying to assimilate or be accepted by or try to get a piece of the pie from the dominant white ruling class. Okay? Because you can see that it ain't going to happen. They're just going to give us crumbs like they've always been giving us, generations back. Crumbs and destruction. Crumbs, destruction. Our valleys, our low points are destruction. And then when things get a little bit better, it's just crumbs. That's been the history of Black America, particularly in its relationship with white America. Okay. Yeah. So that's take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. What else we got? Well, recently, Dr. Claudine Gray, now former president of Harvard University, this is when she was testifying, but she resigned recently from as the president of Harvard University. Harvard President Claudine Gray resigns amid plagiarism claims, backlash from anti-Semitism testimony, etc. She resigned. She was unable to say unequivocally at a hearing, calls for campus of genocidal Jews and would violate the school's conduct policy. This is an interesting story. It's a bit strange because I don't know why she resigned, because even apparently the school board, Harvard's board of directors or whatever, they supported her. So I don't know why she says she resigned because, she doesn't want so much attention to come to this and to spoil the institution, so she'll just step aside. It's just one of those type of resignations. But I don't know why she had to resign. But a lot of people are saying, there's a lot of people saying that it's not really about these things that she's accused of. It's really about trying to, roll back this whole DEI initiative, and also to, affirmative action's been canceled. That was the first win. Now all these inclusions, because a lot of people, in particular white males, normal white people, I guess, a lot of them are starting to feel as if, why should they be blamed for something that they didn't do? And now they also feel that they are getting discriminated against. And I guess they are, because if they're excluded from something or someone else gets preference over them, then technically they are being excluded. You see, everybody's right here. Everybody's right here. But my point is that I don't see why we have to focus, or it's such the first Black Harvard president. I think she's the first Black Harvard president, male or female, and all these titles. And why do we want to always go part of their institutions? We have to create our institutions, ladies and gentlemen. There's no other way, my fellow Black people. There's no other way. We have to create our institutions and focus on that, and stop worrying about trying to become Harvard president or Yale president and and trying to get on the table in the white dominant ruling class area. Let's create our own area, and I think this is the way to do it. Now, we haven't left Charles Blow, because Charles Blow recently wrote an article about this. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Shut the Black Power. Charles Blow recently wrote about this. Let me just switch over here. Okay, and this is what he says. Now, there's Charles Blow. There's his name. And he writes the article of course, I'm not going to read the article, but it's specifically based, as you can see, the title of the article is called "The Persecution of Harvard's Claudine Gray." And he makes the argument that this is not about what she was accused of, because she was accused of plagiarism, right? I believe in her doctorate thesis, there was something that she wrote there, but it was wrongly cited or something like that, or it was taken from another person's work, something like that. So she was accused of plagiarism, as well as the testimony that she gave, at this, I think it was the Senate committee hearing. And the testimony she gave, a lot of people felt she didn't really perform very well. She wasn't answering the questions, blah, blah, blah. But so what he's saying in this article is that she's not necessarily, those things may or may not be true, but those are not the real reasons why she's being taken down. And he goes into really say that she's really being taken down because of racism, and how they want to bring them down. And there's this whole backlash, as I just described earlier, of how now they would say MAGA groups, Make America Great Again groups, and Trump and right wing, they're the ones that, want to push back against all these diversity, inclusion, and set-asides, preferential treatments for people of color, and all this. They're really saying, no, everything should be on an even field. So he's saying here, they're really going to, that's what this is really about. This is about, pushing back against some of these preferential policies that the government has put into place. But again, I would say, look, let's focus on our own thing. Let's focus on our own thing. Let's not worry too much about, Harvard University and all that crap. Let's have our own Black American, particularly foundational Black American university that we send our kids to, and we control the curriculum. we control the environment because we control the state and the locality in which that university is in. That is a much more powerful recipe for power than to try and always want to try and get in and get accepted by the dominant society in their arena. You know, of course, they're going to keep Harvard for themselves. They're not going to give it to some monkeys. Shit. Ah, man. So anyway, that was his article. You know, he said a few more things, but basically, you know, that's really what it was. And so I thought that was interesting. But again, I just want to say, Black America, we got to do it ourselves. We got to do it ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves, and we can do it ourselves. And in the coming months, I'm going to lay down the case for that of how we can actually go about doing it. Whether we do it or not, that's a different story. But how it can be done, and it can be done, and it's so easy for us. But it's obviously it starts with us looking out as ourselves as a group. You know, yes, it's based on race, but we also know that just because you're Black doesn't mean you're down for the cause. You know what I'm saying? So yes, you may be able to get in the door, but are you able to stay in the room? You know, so we have to be aware of that as well. But then there are a lot of non-Black Americans who would support our cause as well. You know, but I think it's very, very important that we start to really look to us. We can do it. We don't have to wait for the dominant society. I know I'm repeating that point over and over again. Now, I want to end this small talk with a little piece from the Minister Louis Farrakhan. Okay. For those of you who don't know him, well, I guess you don't know him. But the Minister Louis Farrakhan. Okay, let's listen to this.
Our unity is more powerful than an atomic or hydrogen bomb. That's the one thing we have never tried. We've kneeled in, crawled in, prayed in, lied in, slept in, but still we are out. If you want to get what you want, we gotta start with a contract with us.
Contract with us. By the way, this was 2005, if I'm not mistaken. 2005/6. The State of the Black Union, which was created by Tavis Smiley. Okay, and this is what he was saying back in 2005/6, almost 20 years ago, ladies and gentlemen.
Contract, a covenant with us. We in leadership make a covenant with your people that you will never sell them out. We as leaders, listen.
Okay, you heard that, huh? You heard that from the minister. You better listen. You better listen. You better listen.
We as leaders, so-called, must make a covenant with our people that nothing is more important than the salvation of a people who are now on a death march. While we're singing and dancing and popping our finger and shaking our backside to the world, we are on a death march into ovens, but not the same oven called Auschwitz. But it is a destruction coming to our people through bad health care, no health insurance, HIV, AIDS, drive-by shootings, gang conflict, crack cocaine. We are now become the enemy of ourselves. So we have to make a covenant. And in closing,
we have to make a covenant. And he's talking about us, Black people.
In my conclusion.
Check this out.
Oh, yes, I'm a Baptist preacher now. In my conclusion, in the 37th chapter of Ezekiel, there was some dry bones that were in a valley. And the bones were talking to one another. They were having a conversation about a contract.
They're talking about a contract. They came together about a contract.
And as they were having this contract, some of the bones said, our hope is lost. Our bones are dried. We are cut off from our pot. There's some that are watching by television and some in this audience that think that we will never come together, that we will never make the right covenant or contract. I say to you, go back and read your scripture. Because when the Son of Man was set down in that valley that was full of bones, he spoke to those bones, and the bones shook and the bones rattled. But they never stood up. So he went back to his sender and he said, Lord, I have spoken to the bones. And nobody has spoken to the bones like black leaders and black preachers. Nobody speaks to the bones like a Reverend Jackson or a T.D. Jakes or Bishop Long or Bishop.
T.D. Jakes. Like I said, this was back in 2005-06. So I think T.D. Jakes was nobody knew. You know, this is like, I think even at this time, R. Kelly was okay, and Bill
Patterson or Cornell West, and those of us that preach, Reverend Sharpton, the bones always listen. The bones shake, the bones rattle, but they never get up and they never do what they're supposed to do. So one generation dies and another generation is born, and we continue to run the same game. So the Son of Man went back to his sin and said, I've been talking. The bones been shaken, but there's still no life in them. He said, well, don't talk to the bones no more.
Don't talk to the bones.
Prophesy to the winds.
Prophesy to the winds.
And let the winds blow on these bones. Mm-hmm. See, Bush is a wind.
Mm-hmm.
Your rejection at the table is a wind. My brother's going to dinner in the White House and can't come away with what is in the best interest of all our people.
So yes, and they did. They tried to appeal. This is what I was saying about we're going to appeal to the dominant white power structure, you know, and they come away with nothing. We get nothing. Black people have been this has been the story of black people in America, and all I'm saying is we have to stop that strategy. It has to be done ourselves.
Jesse running twice, but still couldn't come away with what our people need. All of this is a farce. If we don't make up our minds today to make this contract, this covenant today, not with us and the Democratic Party, to hell with the Democrats and to hell with the Republicans.
Fire. Yo, my people, that's fire, man. That's fire. Let's go back full screen here. That's fire, yo. That's fire. We got to do it ourselves. It's not because we hate anybody. It's because we love ourselves and we understand the urgency, you know, because of the situation we find ourselves here in America. It's urgent that we look at each other as one. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take these off. So thank you for listening. We dig deeper here, man. We're gonna go deep on the surface here so we can rise together. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember, if you liked it, you've come this far, you liked it. So hit the like button. Don't play around. Subscribe. All the good stuff. Stick with me. Definitely every week you'll hear from me. Peace.